Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The trainer-fighter union of Manny Robles and Andy Ruiz Jr. is no more. And this was always coming after the loss on December 7th. You could sort of see it coming, and I think for many boxing fans, they were hoping that Robles wouldn't be sort of painted as a fall guy, because Andy Ruiz Jr. admitted he didn't train hard, he was skipping sessions, eating whatever he wanted, and then he ate his way to 283 pounds for the rematch with Anthony Joshua. Was slow and sluggish, couldn't cut off the ring, and Anthony Joshua, boxing on the back foot, boxed to a comfortable decision on December 7th in Saudi Arabia. And in a video in the weeks after that, I said, I thought within about 6 months or so, we probably would see some sort of parting of the ways between the fighter and the trainer. And that's been confirmed by Manny Robles. And actually, because Manny Robles is the one who's confirmed this, he's got a few statements out about what was going on, how he felt about it. I actually like the way that happened, because I didn't want to see it coming from Ruiz, who obviously was the guy caught slacking in training camp, and then blaming Robles. You may recall that in the post-fight press conference after the loss to Joshua, there was just sort of like a 1,000-yard stare on Manny Robles' face. You could see the sort of anguish, and he obviously was very disappointed and cut up about what happened, but he didn't want to sort of say too much at the time. But talking to ESPN's Steve Kim, he's confirmed that they have parted ways. He says he wasn't stopping by to say hello or have lunch, that's for sure. I've seen it coming, I'll be honest with you. I've seen it coming during camp. I saw it coming. Andy was just doing whatever the hell he wanted to do. The dad obviously being with him, the manager, he just had no control over his son. None of us had control of him, for that matter. So I just saw it coming. It wasn't going to work because he wasn't listening. He's not listening to me. He's not listening to his dad. He's not listening to anybody. He said it himself after the press conference. He apologized to me, to the dad, because he effed up. So I figured, okay, it's only a matter of time before I get the call. Fortunately for me, Andy took the blame on himself and didn't sit there like a majority of fighters and blame the coach. They apparently told them that they didn't want the same thing to repeat itself again. It is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. It's not the first time it's happened to me. I'm sure it's not the first time it's happened to other coaches. It happens time and time again. We always end up getting the short end of the stick, but it is what it is. You keep moving forward. And just reflecting on the sort of relationship, but with Ruiz and his wider sort of training sort of setup and the opportunity to coach him to a world title, Robles says, I've got to tell you, I'm absolutely grateful and blessed to have been able to experience everything that I was able to experience in 2019. I mean, we made history, and I have to be thankful for that. I have to be thankful to Andy and his dad for giving me the opportunity to be part of something special, to have made history, for him to become the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world. I really believed coming into the second fight that we were going to do it again, but obviously you can't do that if the fighter isn't there, if the fighter doesn't want it. I did everything as I could as a coach, as a teacher, as a friend. But again, as I said, if the fighter's not there, what can I do? And that's Manny Robles talking to ESPN's Steve Kim. And for the most part there, Manny Robles, who's a very good trainer, very classy comments. And I think he's not sugarcoating it. He's just telling it how it was, that Ruiz really wasn't there. He thought that he was going to breeze through, didn't have to work, and he cut corners. And Ruiz admitted that himself. And I was sort of, after the loss, sort of a bit worried for Robles and how would it reflect on him, because even though Ruiz sort of did take the blame and made a whole lot of excuses about, why he didn't train harder, etc., there is some sort of stink that would stick to Robles regardless, because that was his fighter. And effectively, Manny Robles and Andy Ruiz Jr. have said that Robles wasn't able to control the fighter. But as he says, if Ruiz's head isn't in the game and no one can sort of control him, there is little that a coach can do. So I think overall, Robles, he's not necessarily trashing Ruiz here. He's just sort of saying it how it was. He expected it, and he sort of thought it was probably coming. And I think many of us did see this coming, that at some point, the partnership between the two, it was going to end. And obviously, Ruiz Jr. has to sort of rebuild his stock, his sort of career in the division. He'll have to now find a new trainer. And I guess on that sort of side of the sort of coin, will trainers be willing to work with Andy Ruiz Jr., given some of what we've heard now, that he's skipping out on days training, he's calling it off early, he's doing what he wants, eating what he wants, when he wants. There's always been a little bit of a knock on Ruiz with some of the training, and obviously a lot of stories that sort of emerged in recent years, not just now, but, that he wasn't necessarily dedicated 100% of the time, as has been judged by some of, the comments other trainers have made. And there was a number of stories in the lead up to the rematch where he initially lost a lot of weight. Robles confirmed that in the build-up, but then ate his way in the final weeks of camp to 283 pounds. That ill discipline, it cost him. Reflects badly on him, but also to an extent to Robles. Maybe some other trainers won't be willing to take a chance on Ruiz Jr. if there are sort of these red flags that do sort of surround him. And if he can so easily be distracted by the sort of fame and the money and the lure of the trappings of being the champion, what hope does another trainer have to really keep him on the straight and narrow as he looks to build his way back up in fights that are not championship fights? It's certainly a question. How motivated is Andy Ruiz Jr.? Certainly saying all the right things on social media. He's been posting all sorts of photos about, he's coming back to basics, back in the gym, yada, 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 but most of them are old photos. We don't know how what sort of effort is actually going in at this point. And for a fight that he doesn't have lined up at this point. There's some talk that he may come back mid-year. There's offers going to him from the Dillian White camp to fight him in April. Will he actually be ready for that? I mean, that's the thing here. He obviously is a prize fighter. He's just lost one of the most high-profile rematches in recent memory and didn't really give a great account of himself, given some of the excuses that he threw out after the loss. Basically said, well, if I had trained hard, I could have won. But the thing is, he should have trained hard. He could have been in the position where he held all the cards, but he sort of threw it all away through his own inactivity and his laziness and eating his way to 283 pounds, being overconfident. So I think Robles, in terms of the coaching side of things, he'll be okay. I think a lot of people know that in these circumstances, he could only do so much. If you can't get the fighter to come into the gym and the fighter doesn't have that burning desire, isn't motivated, there's only so much yelling and screaming that Robles can do to try, really whip the fighter into the sort of mindset that he needs to be in. Ruiz clearly wasn't dialed in for the rematch because he thought he had it on lock. He was going to waltz through and knock out Anthony Joshua, and it didn't happen. So, yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways you can look at this, and hopefully Manny Robles, he continues to go on and he trains a number of very good fighters. He will, still go on without Andy Ruiz Jr. It's not the be-all and end-all. For Andy Ruiz Jr., I mean, coaches that want to take him on, I'm sure there will be someone who will take a punt because they can see the talent that is there, that is clearly there. He's proved it. He's become the unified heavyweight champion of the year. But I'm sure there will be other trainers who will want to give him the wide berth. But yeah, this was certainly always coming to some extent, and I'm glad that Robles isn't necessarily sort of being painted as a fall guy, and that's probably helped because he's come out, he's the one that's made some of these statements about the split, whereas if it had have been Andy Ruiz Jr., maybe it would have been sort of slanted another way, that Ruiz Jr. may have sort of said that he didn't have any faith in Robles anymore to train him or whatever. We don't know what he would have said if he'd have been the one to sort of break it down post the split. But what do you make of this? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.